When a Democrat gets into office, it is inevitable that at some point in time, they're going to come after your Second Amendment rights. They're going to try to limit the purchase and ownership of firearms or firearm accessories. It is, you can schedule it. That's how predictable it is. And what's even more predictable is the fact that they're going to try to use all sorts of buzzwords, sensationalism, scariness to get you to agree with them. And it really is kind of a sad ordeal, especially today. It's a sad ordeal because President Joe Biden and the Biden administration told a lot of whopping lies today, one after the other. And I'm scared that they weren't really caring. I think they knew that they were lying. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried that they knew that they were lying because it wasn't necessarily the truth that they were going after. It's the sensationalistic idea that somehow we have a gun problem in America, that people are dying left and right all the time because of guns. And I want to correct the record right here and tell you that we do not have a gun problem in America. As many guns as that are owned in America right now, if we did have a gun problem, you'd know it. The death count would be much, much, much higher. The amount of firearms that are currently in distribution right now and privately owned by Americans is unknown, but it is definitely in the, I would say 1 out of every 3 people has a gun and probably has multiple guns. And that's the conservative estimate. We're not required to register our guns here in America, so it's unclear how many people own guns and what kind of guns and where they stash them. And that's good. That's a good thing. If the private citizens of America were as gun crazy, and when I say gun crazy, I mean just firing off at everyone and anything they possibly wanted to, you would see the death toll become much higher here in America. We really would have a gun problem, but we don't, because most Americans, I mean the vast majority, are good people, good law-abiding citizens who do not want to pull their firearms out unless under the greatest need. Killing somebody with a firearm is something they don't want to do. They didn't buy it because they want to shoot somebody. They bought it because they want to protect themselves and their families and their property, which is perfectly reasonable. At no point in time should we consider these people crazy to want to protect themselves with the best means necessary. But if you listen to the Biden administration, we are in deep doo-doo when it comes to the gun issues here in America. And so they're wanting to push gun control measures. They're doing this off the back of Colorado because you never let a crisis go to waste, right? Biden trips all over his words and the law announcing executive orders for gun control. This is up at Red State right now. Let's dive in. Joe Biden today announced executive orders for gun control in the Rose Garden, declaring gun violence a public health crisis. And we'd given a preview of what he was likely to do yesterday when it was right on target. Biden is asking the Justice Department within a month to propose a rule to stop ghost guns, which are kits people can buy legally, then fully assemble to create a functioning firearm that does not have a serial number. Biden is also asking the DOJ within 60 days to propose a rule on braces used for handguns, which make them more accurate. Proposing action on, quote, community violence intervention. What is that? That seems a little bit vague to me. Asking the DOJ to publish suggestions for red flag legislation and having his administration issue a report on gun trafficking. Biden also formally announced David Chipman as the director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, or the ATF, or as he called it, the AFT. Real quick, the red flag legislation that he was talking about are red flag laws. And for those of you who don't know what red flag laws are, that is effectively the government being able to strip you of your Second Amendment rights without a trial. Effectively, all someone needs to do is make the claim that you are unstable or you are in a situation where you should not own a gun. And the police or the authorities can come and take your firearms, and then you must prove that you are actually capable and responsible enough to own a firearm. It is not innocence until proven guilty. It is guilty until proven innocent. It is a violation of the Second Amendment rights, and the Democrats would love to pass that because with the snap of a finger, they can take your firearms from you under these red flag laws. It continues. Enough prayers, time for some action, Biden said of Congress. I believe the Senate should immediately pass 3 House-passed bills to close loopholes that allow gun purchasers to bypass the background checks. There is no loophole. There is no loophole. And I want to point to something that Charles Cook wrote. Joe Biden lied about gun shows. I'm just going to go ahead and read this to you real fast. Joe Biden said today, most people don't know you walk into a store and you buy a gun, but you go to a gun show and you can buy whatever you want and no background check. Complete falsehood. Absolute falsehood, as Cook explains. This isn't even close to being true. In fact, gun shows are subject to the same rules as apply everywhere else, which are that 1, commercial transfers require federal background checks, but that 2, private transfers only require federal background checks if they are conducted within one of the 13 states that superintend non-commercial firearm transactions. There are no special rules for gun shows. The same set of laws applies to them as applies to, say, your kitchen table. If you are in the business of selling guns, you are federally obliged to run a check. If you are not, you are not, unless your state requires you to. That's it. There's no loophole here, and nothing about gun shows that separates them from the broader debate about private sales. It is not even the case that most gun sales at gun shows are conducted without background checks, because most guns sold at gun shows are sold by commercial sellers. That is, by people who are in the business of selling guns, as opposed to people selling a gun they inherited or no longer want. Most guns sold at gun shows are accompanied by a background check. Don't believe me? Go to a gun show yourself. Occasionally, you will see someone walking around with a sign saying that he has a gun for private sale, just as he would be able to anywhere else, including via the classifieds. In every other case, you'll see dealers on the phone with the FBI. When Biden says you go to a gun show, you can buy whatever you want with no background check, he is trying to conjure up the public's mind the idea that the United States is full of arbitrarily unregulated gun stores. It is not. It definitely is not. This is a constantly repeated lie by the left, by many Democrats, trying to make it seem like we have this out-of-control transfer problem when it comes to guns. That is not true at all. It is either law or it's not law in many states for private sales. But if you are in the business, if you have a business in selling guns, this includes selling guns at a gun show, you still have to call the federal government to get a background check completed. That's it. Joe Biden lied. That is a straight up lie. But he wants to give off the idea that he can do all this because the Second Amendment really isn't written in stone. In fact, no amendment is written in stone, according to Joe Biden. And this was his actual quote. Nothing I'm about to recommend in any way impinges on the Second Amendment. Biden said there are phony arguments suggesting that these are Second Amendment rights at stake from what we're talking about. But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute. From the very beginning, you couldn't own any weapon you wanted to own. From the very beginning, the Second Amendment existed. Certain people weren't allowed to have weapons. So the idea is just bizarre to suggest that some of the things we're recommending are contrary to the Constitution. They are contrary to the Constitution, especially red flag laws. And I'm not exactly sure what he plans on doing in order to make any gun problem he claims to have better. Because all of the gun laws we have currently right now, if they're not enough to solve the quote-unquote problem that he says that we have, then how is extra laws going to actually fix the problem? And that's the thing you need to ask yourself. How are extra laws going to fix this problem if the ones that we already have don't? It sounds to me like the real problem here isn't necessarily laws to fix a problem. It is laws to restrict rights. It is laws to make you more compliant by taking away your best defense against the government, which is what the Second Amendment was created for in the first place. It wasn't created to hunt deer. Okay? It wasn't created, it was created for protection, not just against your fellow man, but against the government. And that is made very clear by our founding fathers. But here's the thing. Here's an interesting fact. What do you think the blowback is going to be? Well, we already know because it's already happening. According to the Daily Wire, firearm background checks soar to record high in March ahead of gun control push. America saw it coming, and America took action. As it always has, as it's always done. You'll remember back when Barack Obama was the president, gun sales soared. And it was a lot. He was actually labeled the greatest gun salesman in the world. And it's true. And we're not going to see anything different here. Background checks for gun sales soared to an all-time record in March, reportedly spurred on by Joe Biden's threat to increase federal gun regulations and a wave of $1,400 COVID-19 stimulus checks. So people turned around, scared that they were going to have their gun rights infringed on, turned around, took their $1,400 checks that they got from Biden. They took those Biden bucks and bought themselves a gun. U.S. News and World Report noted Thursday that the FBI reported a record number of gun background checks in March. The Bureau conducted nearly 4.7 million background checks, breaking the record high that was just set in January, another month that was marked with violence and turmoil. March's background checks represent a 36% increase from February, which saw about 3.44 million checks. Additionally, nearly 1 million more background checks took place last month than in March 2020. Let's say that the 3.44 million checks even just resulted in one gun sale. Now, there's nothing that says it's just one gun sale. It could be multiples. Okay. Let's just say that. 3.44 million. Even if it was just a little bit less than that, which it has not really been, it averages out maybe to about 3 every single year. And let's say that in Obama, it was the same story. During the Black Lives Matter riots and the Antifa riots, it was the same story. Now with Joe Biden pushing gun control, it's the same story. These are millions and millions and millions and millions of guns that have begun circulating around America. And they still think we have a gun problem, despite the fact that regardless of all these millions of guns being out there, we still don't have the Wild West in the United States. We're still safe. In fact, we're probably safer because many private citizens own firearms. I want to remind everyone that the reason that many people started buying up firearms, not just because they were afraid that they weren't going to be able to get any later on down the line, but especially during the Black Lives Matter Antifa riots, people started buying firearms because they were afraid that they were next. And you know what? Some of them were right. You never knew which town or city was going to get burned to the ground next by these agitators, by these people who come out and begin tearing down businesses, hurting people, assaulting, murdering people, strictly because they want justice for insert name here. It is disgusting to think that a lot of people are buying firearms because, they have some ill intention. Millions and millions of people, first-time gun owners recently, bought it because they are scared for their own lives. And the government has proven that not only are they ineffective at helping protect people, that sometimes they are the originators of the problem. Okay? I do not believe for 1 second that Joe Biden can wave a magic wand and make all our problems disappear, to make sure that the problems that the Democrat Party created in the first place are going to be undone by the same administration, by the same kind of party, in order to protect us. Really, protection comes down to you. You are your best line of defense. You are your first and last line of defense sometimes. Yeah, sure, you can call the police, but the average time for a police officer to arrive at your door is about 6 minutes. And a lot can happen in 6 minutes, including your death or your harm, whichever one comes first. And usually police arrive after the fact. Usually the police arrive when the crime has been done. So really, firearms are America's best way to protect themselves. Why? Why would a Democrat Party who believes that standing back and applauding rioters, Black Lives Matter looters, why is the same party who thinks that standing back and applauding them, cheering them on in some cases, should be the same party that actually thinks that you, the American citizen, should disarm yourself and make sure that you are at the mercy of anybody and everyone who does not want to obey the law, who wants to burn things down, who wants to rob you, or do worse. This is not a party that is looking out for your best interest. This is a party that would rather see you powerless, if we're being all things concerned. And they're happy to lie to you. They're happy to lie to you about the gun problems in this nation. We do not have a gun problem. But they want to say a lot of scary things like ghost guns and loopholes, no background checks necessary, no guns without serial numbers on them. They want to say all this sensational stuff to make you scared. Because if you're scared, then you're compliant. It's easy to strip someone of their rights whenever the person is actually asking for it to happen. And that's what the Democrats are banking on here. This isn't fair to the American people. Many people do not, the vast majority of Americans do not commit crimes. They haven't done anything wrong. They might own an entire arsenal of guns and never broken one law. Okay? And it's also not fair to the people out there who have had to use their guns in order to protect themselves. How many women out there have not been sexually assaulted because they were armed? These are things that they're not talking about. They don't want to talk about it. But it is unfair. It's unfair to punish people for a crime they didn't commit. But this is not about fairness. This isn't about facts, as the Joe Biden administration has proven to us right now. This is about control. This is really what it boils down to. I'll see you in the next video. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or learned anything, please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification icon so you're made aware when we upload new content. See you in the next video.